Okay, at this point we're going to get ready to prep a brake rotor so that we could possibly turn this rotor to restore the friction surface back to good condition, manufacturer specs. Of course, on this we're going to have to use a brake lathe, and brake lathe uses a couple of different areas to center everything off of, and here they are. One, we all know about this flange, that whenever we have a top hat style rotor, it's going to just sit back and its surface will then be flush with the actual flange itself. So in the first case, we do have to make sure that this flange is flat, so that then we can have a surface to work off of. And if we look at our dial indicator, we can see that this dial indicator rubs pretty darn good on this. We've all set it up on the outside of him, and not much run out on this. So then that means that our brake rotor, whenever we put it on the lathe, needs this mating surface to be nice and true. But one other thing, even though I have this surface, that does not center the rotor up and down. And of course we have this flange that we've already talked about that we need to make sure that is good and clean and not worn out. But again, that's going to be the one that centers the drum or rotor from going up and down on the top hat design. And of course on the outside is going to be our rim that it literally sandwiches the rotor in between. So to prep our brake rotor, now that we know we have a good foundation here to put it on, a flat surface here, and then the neck of this, the nose of this, that then will center it up and down. We're going to have to replicate those on the brake lathe itself then. So with that, let's get our brake rotor prepped so that we can then take it to a brake lathe and work it. Here's the flange that sits against the axle hub, and we're going to have to clean this up. Now, several ways and several different parts that rust do come from. One, if I was to take and chip on the inside of this thing, you can see the chunks fall off of this. With that, if you was just rotating wheels on a car and this rotor surface wiggled a small amount because the rim's not there to hold it, this rust can flake off of these edges here and fall down and lay in between. Of course, that's going to produce a wobble. So we do need to make sure that this inner side is clean, and we can do it several ways, chipping away and so on like that. You could have an air hammer and lightly hit it to get the big chunks out. We don't want to go straight to a glass beater because of course these big chunks will plug up our glass beater. So we're going to go around and actually clean this surface up. For the inside surface then you can go in and use some type of a wire wheel. We've got these Scotch brake pads here then that's velcroed on the end of it. Nice brake kit from Matco that they even suggest just using your impact. You don't even need to buy a rotary grinder. And with that, we are deep enough here on this also that we can do one of these. Watch this. So we can do this flange. There's a hole in the center of this that literally allows us to go over top of our stud and clean that flange area just like that. So that's something then also that's pretty nice about the long distance and the long shaft on that to go up over top of our studs. Again, back to our flange, we broke off the big chunks. We then clean up that edge. We then turn it over, of course. This isn't as critical on this side, on the outside, because the rim's going to push it in, but still, if it was crusty, that's going to make the rim wobble then, so we don't want that to happen. So we do clean that up. Now I'm going to go ahead and take and stick this in the sandblaster just to show you what it could look like if it was really cleaned up, and then we'll start looking at adapters to adapt this up to the brake lathe itself.